just 7 glasses of wine across the week, it's likely that there is going to be some degeneration of your brain in response to that alcohol intake. Even for people that were drinking low to moderate amounts of alcohol, so 1 or 2 drinks per day, there was evidence of thinning of the neocortex, so loss of neurons in the neocortex. For people that are regular drinkers or that have a genetic predisposition to alcoholism, when they drink, they tend to feel very energized and very good for longer periods of time. People who tend to feel more alert and excited every time they drink, they tend to get a real lift. They become kind of the life of the party, and that lasts a long while. Those people are the ones that really have to be careful about predisposition for alcoholism. Alcohol has a very strong effect in suppressing the neural networks that are involved in memory formation and storage. This is why oftentimes we forget the events of a night out if we've been drinking. That areas of the brain that are involved in flexible behavior, sort of considering different options, those brain areas basically shut down entirely, and people just tend to say what they want to say. Chronic drinking doesn't necessarily mean every day and every night. It could be the person that simply drinks every Thursday or every Friday. There's evidence that there are changes in the neural circuits of the brain that control habitual behavior and impulsive behavior, and they are modified and strengthened in ways that make those people more habitual and more impulsive outside the times in which they are drinking. So in animals or humans that undertake a period of abstinence of anywhere from 2 to 6 months, these neural circuits return to normal, except in cases where people have been chronically drinking large volumes of alcohol for many, many years. There is evidence of long-lasting impact of heavy alcohol usage throughout the lifespan. But for people that have been drinking for a lot of years, maybe you went to college and you drank a lot in those years and your neural circuits change. If there's a period in which you don't drink alcohol, again, from 2 to 6 months, and ideally longer, those neural circuits can then be remodified back to their original state. If you eat something prior to drinking alcohol or while ingesting alcohol, it will slow the absorption of alcohol into the bloodstream. In other words, you won't feel as drunk as fast, in particular if that meal includes carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Okay, the inclusion of all 3 major macronutrients seems to slow the absorption of alcohol into the bloodstream far more than having any one of those or 2 of those macronutrients present. If you have an empty stomach, within 5 to 10 minutes, that alcohol is going to be within your bloodstream and distributed throughout your body, maybe even faster depending on the type of alcohol and your metabolism. And if you're somebody who is concerned about getting too drunk too quick, even from a small amount of alcohol, having some food in your gut can certainly be beneficial. There are also dramatic changes in the activity of neurons that control the release of so-called serotonin. Serotonin is a neuromodulator. It changes the activity of neural circuits, and many neural circuits, in particular those involved in mood and feelings of well-being. When we ingest alcohol, the toxic effects of alcohol disrupt those mood circuitries, at first making them hyperactive. And then as they ingest more alcohol, or as that alcohol wears off, serotonin levels and the activity of those circuits really starts to drop. And that's why people feel less good. And typically what they do, they go and get another drink and they attempt to kind of restore that feeling of well-being and mood. Most people, as they drink more and more, will now start to feel more and more suppressed. So people start to slur their speech, people start to shuffle their feet, people forget their posture, people start to lean on things, people start passing out on couches. Now, I said most people because there's a subset of people that have gene variants that as they ingest the 3rd and 4th and 5th drink, what happens? They become more alert. And they're the ones that if you've ever fallen asleep at a party for whatever reason, or you're getting tired and you're yawning, you're looking around the room and like these people are still drinking and partying and they're having what seems to be this amazing time. Often, not always, those are the future alcoholics in the room. And of course, they too have a threshold beyond which their nervous system will start to get diminished and they'll pass out, and fall over, etc. But that threshold is way, way higher than it is for most people. People who drink a bit, and when I say a bit, I don't mean 1 or 2 sips or even a glass of wine every once in a while. All of those groups experience increases in cortisol release from their adrenal glands when they are not drinking. And as a consequence, they feel more stressed and more anxiety when they aren't drinking. If people are ingesting alcohol chronically, even if it's not every night, there are well-recognized changes in neurochemistry within the brain And there are well-recognized changes in the brain-to-body stress system. It's very clear that those sorts of drinking patterns are changing neural circuitry and they're changing hormone circuitry. And I'd love to be able to tell you that they're changing them for the better, but they simply are not. They're actually changing them for the worse. In cultures where you have a lot of genetic variants and genes expressed in people where they have a lot of alcohol dehydrogenase, sure, they can drink more. So you will observe more alcoholism in those communities because they're drinking more. But I do want to emphasize that the environmental factors are playing a strong role there too, because if you can drink more, you're likely to drink more. If you're somebody that feels sick immediately from drinking, it's likely that you're not going to engage in alcohol consumption. Chances are, if you have an immediate relative who's a chronic abuser of alcohol, or several relatives who are chronic abusers of alcohol, well, that's going to predispose you to be an alcoholic. The other thing that predisposes people to abuse of alcohol is age. If you grow up in a family of drinkers and alcohol is everywhere, and especially if there's peer pressure or lack of oversight, then there's going to be a higher tendency, or a higher probability, I should say, that you will start drinking at a younger age. So for instance, at 13 or younger, or 14 or 15, there's a much higher probability that they're going to develop a long-lasting dependence on alcohol. If they take their first drink at 21, the probability that they'll go on to develop full-blown alcohol dependence, or alcohol use disorder, as it's called, AUD, is very low. Genes matter, but also the age in which somebody starts drinking really matters. So it's very clear that drinking early in life creates a propensity for the development of alcohol use disorder later in life. I put out a question on Twitter the other day. I said, what do you want to know about alcohol? Many of the questions, hundreds in fact, related to the question of, well, if I drank a lot previously, am I doomed? As you try and wean yourself off alcohol, or maybe even go cold turkey, that increased anxiety and feelings of stress should be expected. And it should be expected because of that increase in cortisol that occurs with even low-level consumption, yet chronic alcohol consumption. When people initially start drinking, there are increases in dopamine, or what we call dopaminergic transmission. Dopamine is involved in motivation, craving. It creates a sense of well-being. It increases energy. Most people experience some sort of mild euphoria. That's why so many people drink, right? The current estimates are that in most countries, and certainly in the US, as many as 80%. Percent of the adult legal drinking age population drinks alcohol. So there's an increase in dopamine and an increase in serotonin. So it's kind of an increase in well-being, an increase in mood, but it's a very short-lived increase. So basically what you're getting is a blip of feel good followed by a long, slow arc of feeling not so great, which is why typically people will drink again and again across the night. The duration of that long, slow reduction in dopamine and serotonin gets even longer. In other words, the negative effects of alcohol that happen after the initial feeling good extend longer. So the first drink that somebody has, provided they have enough alcohol dehydrogenase that it doesn't make them feel nauseous and sick right away, they feel really good. And then as it wears off, they feel kind of lousy and they want to drink more. So they might drink more.